So for starters, to start the machine, turn the key forward. You'll see the glow plug light will illuminate as long as it's below 50 degrees. Normally, it's warm out today, so it's not gonna light up. In the winter or anytime it's below 50 degrees, you're gonna wanna let that cycle at least once. If it's really cold, maybe cycle it twice. You can also hold the key in the back position, and that will also activate the glow plugs. You can hold that for maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and then fire the tractor up. There's no need for any starting fluid, any ether, anything like that. That's just gonna wreck it, blow the motor. We do about 1 engine rebuild a year because somebody doesn't listen to that. There's cold starting aids like the glow plugs and grid heaters to prevent any starting issues in the winter. If it's not starting in the winter, you're going to probably, first thing I would do is look at your fuel, make sure your fuel filter is not frozen. This one does have the sight glass, so you can see if it's actually frozen or not. Right there, you can see that's clear red off-road diesel right there. If it's foggy, then it's either got moisture in it or it's frozen. And that would be your starting issue. So as long as your battery's charged and your fuel isn't frozen, you should never really have too much of a starting issue with this. As for the controls here, it's raining so I won't sit, but the start sequence, essentially this is your main shifter, low, medium, high. You're gonna wanna put that in neutral, where you can put it side to side like that. Neutral, on the seat, and I believe you press the brake on this model to start it, okay? It also won't start if your PTO switch is engaged. If that's engaged like that, it's not gonna start. That's a safety. If you had like a brush hog on it, you don't want it to just fire up and chop up your children.
Well, you haven't met my children, maybe.
maybe actually, let's remove that safety. Also, it'll give it trouble starting if this is engaged while the backhoe's off. So right now, we want that in the B position, detented into the B position. But if you were to remove the backhoe, make sure to put this in neutral. Otherwise, you'll be deadheading the hydraulics. The tractor will probably crank. It might start to sputter, but once it gets colder outside, you're gonna notice it's probably not gonna wanna start. Okay, and also when you do start it, if the throttle isn't already at 0, it's going to stay, well, 0 is essentially what it's reading, right? 0% throttle. It's obviously gonna idle at like 1,000. So it's not gonna wanna rev up if you're already at like 20% throttle. You have to bring it back to 0 and then rev it up. That's like a safety, so the motor gets the oil pressure up before it kind of revs up, right? That should be most of the start sequence. Your brake pedal is splittable here. That way you can steer tighter if you're going through the woods or pulling logs or something like that. Essentially, it'll pivot off of the brake that you stop, as long as it's in 2-wheel drive, which I'll kind of go over the main controls here. This is your forward and reverse pedal. There isn't anything crazy about that. If the pedals are starting to get stiff, maybe it's time to change the hydraulic oil. Some of the springs and stuff down there can get bent or something. That's somewhat common, but as long as everything's lubricated down there, once in a while maybe spray all the linkages down with like a PB blaster or a fluid film to keep everything moving easy. You shouldn't really have any issues with the pedal as long as you do that and or don't bend things. This is your loader joystick. Up, down, left, right. This is also the loader joystick lock. That way you don't bump it when you're hopping on and off the machine. If you got something valuable on the forks, you don't want them to just tip by accident. So that's what that's for. But obviously still don't trust your life with the loader or whatever you're picking up. Hydraulic lines can burst, it does happen. This is your 3-point hitch lift and lower. Most tractors have that in the same position right there. It also is connected to this linkage back here, if you see that moving as well. That's just directly connected. That way you can connect the 3-point hitch and implement back here alone, single-handedly, because as long as the machine's running, you can operate it, the height of the 3-point hitch with that lever back here. What else? All right, that's most stuff on that side. This related to your 3-point hitch, that is your 3-point hitch speed knob. We usually put it towards the rabbet. That way the customer doesn't call and say that it doesn't move. Oftentimes your heel might hit it if you're hopping on here. It might slowly rotate it or something. If that's the case, and you slowly turn all the way to the slow position, it will stop moving. It won't go down, essentially. The 3-point hitch won't go down. Okay. But you adjust that if you had like a weight box or a heavy snowblower on the back. So when you're back there hooking it up and you move that linkage down, it doesn't just drop and crush your foot.
Right. Okay.
Four-wheel drive shifter right here. That's again very similar gear setup as the main gear selector. If this isn't engaging or if this isn't quite engaging, that's simply because the gears are not quite lined up. There's no synchros on any of that. That's just straight cut gears, you know.
Yep.
Teeth look like that. You just got to rotate things and line them up. So sometimes to get those to go in, you just nudge the forward pedal just a little bit.
Okay.
Nudge the forward or reverse pedal. The gears will move. You know, put a little pressure on that. It's just going to pop right in. Diff lock. This locks your rear axle together. The differential is normally an open differential. That means power goes to the side that's spinning.
Ask you a question. Gary Reardon, Paul's taking him. Sorry.